Hello and welcome back to iScience Radio. Our intro music is themed around Chinese New Year, or Xin Nier Kuai Le. I really hope I didn't butcher that. So today we're going to start off with some reviews and recommendations that are happening at Imperial and also in London in general. We have an audio package from our co-producer Katie about how Spider Silk is providing the blueprint for improved microphone technology as a new development for hearing loss aids. Our main interview segment is with Jocelyn as we discuss science on stage, how we share science stories in the arts, and that's going to be from Jocelyn's personal theatre experiences to her recent interview with playwright Peter Sin-Naktri. Before we talk about recommendations, we have our co-producer Katie's song pick, The Loneliest Time by Carly Rae Jepsen.
I've had one of those bad dreams where we're standing on your street. I quit smoking those cigarettes, but I'm never getting over it. And you're looking right through me, just like Shakespeare on a tragedy. But our story never finished there, 'cause our love, we never finished there. I'm coming over tonight, knock on your door, just like before. I need that look in your eyes, 'cause we've had the loneliest times. I'm thinking over the night, I could be yours, just like before. Rewrite another track, 'cause we've had the loneliest time. If you wanna try it, if you wanna try me, if you wanna try it, maybe need a night for me. If you wanna try it, if you wanna try it, if you wanna try it.
I've had more of those bad dreams. You were 10 feet in front of me. I went running, but I couldn't catch just the shadow of your silhouette.
When you spoke the words to me, when you left, I still need to unpack it. Let's say sorry for another night, 'cause this time, love, we're gonna get it right. I'm coming over tonight, knock on your door, just like before. I need that look in your eyes, 'cause we've had the loneliest times. I'm thinking over the night, I could be yours, just like before. Rewrite another track, 'cause we've had the loneliest time. If you wanna try it, if you wanna try it, if you wanna try it, if you wanna try me, if you wanna try it, if you leave the light on for me. I just need back into your life. What happened was, we reached the moon, but lost in space. I think we got there all too soon. But you know what? I'm coming back for you, baby. I'm coming back for you.
And in the morning, sun hits the water.
It's been so long.
I'll start us off with our reviews and recommendations. This Saturday, I attended an event called Nature Nurtures, which is held by London Wildlife Trust at the Centre for Wildlife Gardening in East Dulwich. It was a really lovely day. There was free pizza. We made these clay tiles, and then we did foraging, and then there was a session in the afternoon where we had to write poetry about connecting physical processes to random processes in our day, such as topping up your Oyster card with kind of like eutrophication, and then you blended the lines and you could kind of make a cool poem out of that, which was something I'd never done before, and I found that fun. And this Thursday on the 26th of January at 6:30 to 9:30 at the Natural History Museum is Explorers Night, Mind, Body and Space. And it's an evening of experiences brought to you by scientists, creatives and activists of colour to explore our complicated relationship with nature. Book-wise, I'm currently reading Do I Make Myself Clear? Why Writing Well Matters by Harold Evans, which was actually recommended by a fellow course mate in one of Stephen's classes. It's great for essays, but also sort of life writing in general. He gives lots of practical tips, which you can then enact immediately. And also, Jocelyn's going to talk to us about Megan, the film that you recently saw.
Yes, I would love to talk about Megan. Really, really great film. I think the trailer makes it seem scarier than it is, though. I would not classify it as a horror film.
Your bar is quite high, though.
I know my bar is high, but I went there with my friend who does get scared by movies, and she was not scared.
Right, okay.
Because it's just so funny. It's hilarious. It's darkly funny, but it's funny. It's like almost absurd at times. But yeah, I think I've also... So, okay, let me summarize Megan for you. So what happens is basically... okay, so this girl... oh my god, what's
it's like
the
an AI...
name?
I thought it was like an AI Chucky.
Kind of, but like no. So this... Oh yeah, okay. So this girl, Katie, she's like 8 or 9 or whatever. Basically, her parents are in a car crash. Her parents die, and she ends up being taken into custody by her aunt, who's I think her mom's sister, who's like, she has like a robotics major, but she like clearly didn't plan on ever having kids, and she's just a bit like lost as to what to do with her.
Yeah,
and I've never related to a protagonist more in my life.
She's the mom.
Yeah, like the aunt, the one who's okay. And then like she just doesn't know. It's just her house is just it's just very funny. And then so what she does but anyway, so the kid discovers a robot that she made in college, right. and is very interested by it. And again, we love a strong female character, right? Yeah. We love a female character interested in STEM. Hello.
Yes.
So then she's like, wow, if I had something like this, that'd be the best. I'd never need another toy again. Yeah. And so the aunt, whose name is Gemma, I should have mentioned, invents Megan, who is basically like a doll. That's a robot. That's her best friend who takes care of her, who takes responsibility for everything, like, so she never has to do any work. And it's definitely supposed to be a roast, or sort of taking the piss out of parents that raise their kids on iPads and stuff like that. Like, it's definitely a little bit of that. But it's also about pressures on women, about how, like, the societal pressure that Gemma feels because she's not sort of naturally a motherly type figure, and this was not really a plan she had for herself.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just a really good movie.
That's nice. They're sort of breaking out kind of archetypes there.
Yeah. It's just a very cool thing. And what I really love is that the stunt double who played Megan and Violet McGraw, who, if you don't know who Violet McGraw is, if you've ever seen The Haunting of Hill House, she plays little Nell, young Nell. So the young version of Victoria Pedrotti's character. Okay. But anyway, she and the stunt double who plays Megan actually became like best friends on the set, which is so cute.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah, so it's very real, and it's a very good movie. Like, all the female characters are really, really just badass and cool.
I wasn't expecting such a positive review of that, so it's nice you made me consider it more.
Yeah, like it's really not that scary. There are scary-ish moments, but there's no jump scares.
Yeah. Does it have a happy ending?
Yeah.
Okay.
It really does.
Okay, good.
I really recommend it.
All right. Well, thank you. Now we'll go on to our second song, which is my pick, Dreams by the Cranberries. One in 6 adults in the UK are impacted by hearing loss, with many using hearing aids to help access a broader range of sounds. Despite so many relying on these devices, even the most advanced hearing aids can falter in busy environments. A novel solution has been found in the world of creepy crawlies, as a research team from the USA discovered that orb-weaving spiders' webs are able to sense sound better than a human eardrum. Our reporter Kainsey Thompson investigates how Spider Silk is providing the blueprint for improved microphone technology, beginning with hearing aid user James Archer and the difference these wearable microphones make in his day-to-day life.
When I get in my car and I turn the engine on and I've got, say, music or more a podcast playing, if I don't have my hearing aids on, everything kind of munges into the same thing. The talking, the engine, the outside sounds, there's no distinction between them. As soon as I wear my hearing aid, I can individually distinguish each sound that is going on.
For software tester James Archer, a deteriorating eardrum means that sounds are hard to interpret without his hearing aid. His hearing aid's microphone senses air pressure on a synthetic membrane, mimicking an eardrum. But it struggles in complex acoustic environments where hearing aids are poor at discriminating unwanted noise, an issue all too familiar for clinical audiologist Emily Grant and her patients.
By far the most common complaint I hear from hearing aid users is their performance in background noise is still not brilliant. Hearing aids tend to struggle to pick out a sound that you want to hear because it doesn't know which sound you want to hear, particularly if the background noise is also speech.
To combat this, mechanical engineering professor Ron Miles and his team at Binghamton University took inspiration from a walk in the countryside. Rather than flinching at the sight of an orb-weaving spider's web, they stopped to question if it's being used for more than just catching flies.
So we studied the response of spider silk to sound. So we play sound with a very well-controlled sound wave, so we know both the sound pressure and we know the acoustic velocity. The fact that there's a net force on the air causes the air to move. So there is motion. We could measure the motion of the spider silk, and we found that it responds just amazingly well. Much broader range of frequencies than human hearing. In a sense, the silk itself, it can be an almost ideal acoustic sensor. And then that gave another question. There's a spider sitting on the web. Can the spider possibly hear using the motion of the spider web?
To find out, Professor Miles put the spiders through an adapted hearing test, similar to how audiologist Emily diagnoses patients in the hospital.
In a standard hearing test, I'm looking to find the threshold, so the quietest level at which the sound can be heard 2 out of 3 presentations.
So I'm sat here in a soundproof booth in the NHS, and I've got headphones on and a button in my hand. I can hear pure tones being played into my left ear at the moment. And to show Emily I can hear, I press the button. The sounds are similar to those played to the spiders, but things were not quite as simple as pressing a button for Ron Miles and his team to measure the spider's hearing.
You can't ask the spider, if it can hear. So enter our biologists friends, where we wanted to look at the behavior of the animal. If you play a sound, does it respond? And found that the animal does in fact respond. Somehow it's able to hear.
Not only were the spiders able to detect different levels of sound, but also the direction of sound with 100% accuracy. The spiders turned to face the direction of the noise and crouched, stretched, and adjusted the web's tension. The researchers suggest that the spiders manipulate the silk to tune into specific frequencies.
Since this does appear to be a good way to sense sound through a web, which is not responding to sound pressure, it's responding to the motion of the air, does that suggest maybe we ought to try to make microphones that way? And basically our goal is to create devices that respond to the motion of the air. So if you want to figure out, say, where a certain sound source is, it can be very advantageous to sense the velocity of the air molecules in the sound field because they move in the direction that the wave is propagating. You could also, with signal processing, get rid of unwanted sounds that come from other directions. Hearing aids need to have good directional ability to get rid of that background noise. And it seems like this is a really good way to do it.
But don't worry, spiders aren't going to be spinning webs inside your ear to help you hear better. Instead, engineers are developing a synthetic biomaterial based on spider silk that could replace membranes in conventional pressure-sensing microphones, like those found in James's hearing aids.
What I tend to find is the most tricky is when sound changes quite quickly. When someone shouts or screams or laughs really, really loudly, it just goes boom, and I'm like, whoa, what the hell was that?
So James has to turn his hearing aids down in loud environments like this pub. At full capacity, his hearing aids amplify unwanted sounds and lose nearby voices to the crowd. But with Spider Silk-inspired hearing aids, he could pull out the voices he wants to hear, reduce any hubbub, and adapt to sudden changes in the soundscape.
Detecting sound and getting rid of unwanted sound sources is a big deal for current technology because, we'd like to have our little microphones in noisy places and not have it be influenced by all the background noise. This technology could be very beneficial for billions of portable electronic devices.
From hearing aids to your mobile phone, microphones all around us could one day have their very own Spidey sense. But first, the engineers must finalise their synthetic silk structure. Only then can we start benefiting from this bio-inspired technological innovation.
Nature just gets it right. It's not just that it's cool or awesome to study nature and get ideas from nature. It's really, if you want to get it right, find out how nature does it.
Thank you, Katie, for sending that over. That was an incredible package. I loved it. I really felt like I was in James's shoes and felt the sounds that he was hearing and not hearing. Yeah, what did you think of it, Jocelyn?
Yeah, I felt like a spider. That was great.
Yeah, and you can't do it better than nature does it. I loved that as well.
Yeah.
And very true. Right, well, our next song is Breathe, but the High Bias Radio Mix. It's Jocelyn's pick for today by Michelle Brands.
I've been driving for an hour, just talking to the rain. You say I've been driving crazy, and it's keeping you away. So just give me one good reason, tell me why I should stay. 'Cause I don't wanna waste another moment saying things we never meant to say. And I take it just a little bit. I hold my breath and count to 10. I've been waiting for a chance to let you in. If I just breathe and fill the space between, I'll know everything is alright. Breathe every little piece of me, you'll see everything is alright. If I just breathe. Well, it's all so overrated, and not saying how you feel. So you end up watching chances fade and wondering what's real. And I give you just a little time. I wonder if you realize I've been waiting till I see it in your eyes. If I just breathe and fill the space between, I'll know everything is alright. Breathe every little piece of me, you'll see everything is alright. If I just breathe. So I whisper in that I hoping you'll hear me. Do you hear me? If I just breathe and fill the space between, I'll know everything is alright. Breathe every little piece of me, you'll see everything is alright. Yeah, everything is alright if I just breathe.
guest this evening is science media production student Jocelyn, who has a dual passion of drama and science communication, which I think actually meld quite wonderfully together. We're going to discuss the relationship between science and the stage through Jocelyn's own personal experiences and also her recent interview with the playwright Peter Sinnaktry. So first off, can you tell me a bit about your background in drama and how this combined with science communication and led you here today on this course?
Yes. Well, I started in theater when I was quite young. I think I did my first play when I was like 4.
Wow, that is young.
I was kind of just bouncing off the walls, and so my parents just put me in that, and it was a good match.
Yeah.
And then science came shortly after. I liked both. I went to college, undergrad, and where I went to school, you can do what's called a double major, so you can study 2 different subjects. And in the U.S., you go for 4 years, so there's kind of time. And it's kind of I went to Skidmore College in upstate New York, and it's very common to major in an art and a science there.
Right.
And I chose theater and biology, and that was like... people thought that was really weird, but I said, well, I want to be like a nature host.
Yeah.
Because I realized I think I like talking about science more than I like lab work. And I like acting, but I don't love the industry, having experienced it professionally. But I think from a young age, I do seem to know a lot of people who do theater, like were either once in theater and then switched to a science or vice versa. And I think... for me, it came from a sense of otherness. Mm-hmm. Like, I frequently see this combination with marine biology, where it's this idea of, I don't feel like I really fit in. Perhaps if I lived in this other universe where the rules are perhaps different, things might be a little bit better. And I think it definitely came from there for me.
Yeah.
I think it comes that way for a lot of people.
I think both are quite creative things, really.
Yeah.
And science is a lot of using your imagination, even though it doesn't seem so. You think you have to follow rigid rules, but I was reading something and it was saying how, all scientific discoveries, they came by a large part through imagination, which is everything when you're in the arts and theatre. It's all you're living in your imagination and stories. So they do come together.
Right. I mean, there's creativity in designing experiments, and there's a lot of adapting, and there's a lot of, trying to answer a question. And I think a lot of theater is trying to answer a question. And then when I did that interview with Peter, we also talked about how he said that he wrote plays. He started writing plays because he wanted to try and answer the questions that science couldn't answer.
So who is Peter and how did you come to interview him?
Yes. Okay. So Peter Sinnaktry is a playwright, a very, very good playwright in the U.S. And his plays are all scientifically inspired or about scientific topics, either directly or indirectly. And his most famous play, Boom, in the 2009-2010 professional theater season in the U.S. was the most performed play.
Wow.
So that's a huge deal.
Nationwide,
yes.
That's huge.
Yeah. And so, and when I was in college, I did a scene from Boom my sophomore year intermediate acting class. And then, because I was like, I guess, theater marine bio girl, when I was in my senior year, my friend Danny directed a workshop of it. And I was basically like, do you need like a dramaturg? And she was like, yes. So a dramaturg, by the way, in case you don't know what that is basically when you do a show, they work with the director and they inform sort of the creative team of the facts of the show. Right? So if it's taking place during a certain time period, they do the research of this would have been historically accurate, this isn't, and they sort of
fact-checking role.
Yes, basically that's what a dramaturg is.
Nice.
They're sort of a theatrical researcher of sorts.
Yeah.
So for a play like Boom, they needed a marine biology dramaturg, and I was there, and the set. Okay, so let me explain the plot of Boom because it's a very interesting play. So basically, and this is not Peter's only play, by the way. It's the one that's the most famous and the most well-known and the one that's been sort of the moneymaker. it had its UK premiere in 2017, its professional premiere. I don't know if it got as as enthusiastic a reception as it did in the US. But basically, the plot is this. So, it takes place in a subterranean marine biological lab at a research university. Okay. And a journalism undergrad student, a female undergrad journalism student named Jo, replies to this online ad, promising a night of intensely significant coupling, like a sex ad. And basically, she shows up and finds Jules, who's a PhD student in marine biology, and he's basically like, so basically I'm gay, but I need you here because I think the apocalypse is going to happen because I've observed the way my fish behave, and basically the apocalypse is going to happen within the next 24 hours, and I need a fertile ovum with which to produce children.
Oh my goodness.
And basically the apocalypse does happen, and the whole play is just this existential crisis of like, anyway, what ends up happening is that his
wild.
fish, yeah, it's pretty wild, is that his fish do lay eggs.
Okay.
So they don't actually have to have sex with each other because the evolutionary cycle starts over.
Oh, is that sort of the conclusion then?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
It starts with fish. So basically,
go back.
It ends with them. They walk outside the lab together in sort of a mutual suicide, just knowing that like the cycle of life and vertebrate life will continue on, and it's a very high concept play. Oh, yeah. And all of that whole thing is a museum exhibit within the world of the play. So there's this museum curator who's controlling all of that happening at the same time and narrating it and describing like, oh, basically this is how how vertebrate life started, and basically controlling all of that. So the audience is playing both the role of the scientist, watching essentially a male specimen and a female specimen of the same species interact with each other within an enclosed space, and they're basically observing to see if they'll mate with each other.
That's so interesting. There's levels to that.
Yeah, so so the audience is playing the role of a scientist, like an animal behavioral scientist, but also of a museum guest because they're watching an exhibit. So they're it's a very meta play.
Yeah.
And it's not usually the type of thing that would blow up so much. And it really kind of blew my mind when I first read it. And so then, when the topic was announced of science and creativity, I don't know, I shot Peter an email. That's how I've been.
And he responded.
Yeah, amazing, he responded.
That's so great. I love that.
And he was so cool.
What did you talk about in the interview? What was your main sort of thing you wanted to get out of him?
We talked about a lot of stuff. Okay, before I continue, I want to specify something. There were very, very strict text limits with this issue of iScience. So from this point forward, when I refer to my interview with Peter, I'm talking about the interview as it will be published in the features section of iScience online. Mm-hmm. What's in the printed magazine is a very, very, very abridged version of that, and it does not specify that. So just know that, because otherwise it's going to be very confusing. So I just want to clarify that.
So go online if you want the full thing.
Yes, okay. If you want to really get what that conversation was about, I would really, check out the online version. And also, I'm head of, I'm the co-head with Minnie of iScience Video as well, and we'll have other stuff related to this coming up soon. So, and I'll get to that in a minute. But yeah, so we talked about a lot of things.
There was a quote in particular I loved, which was, "Arts, theatre and biology are trying to make sense of the world in an epic and intimate way."
Yeah.
And I thought it does seem like we do interrogate the world, either through a scientific lens or an artistic one, but we don't often see them so combined as they are. We sort of touched on that before, but yeah, it's a beautiful quote.
It's the intro to the play is really quite something, and the intro is the first 20 pages of the play are online on his website, if you're interested in reading them. But he mentions that, and it's so true, because theater, especially when you get it to, when you really study it, It's about understanding who we are as humans, and every good play is really trying to answer a question of who we are as humans. And I think biology as well, and anthropology, and a lot of related sciences are also trying to answer the same question. Who are we as humans? What is the world? I think theater and biology and science in general, theater and science are both trying to answer the question of what is the universe and what's our place in it.
Yeah, both inquisitive.
Yeah, they're very inquisitive, and just in different ways. And yeah, you know.
And is he writing more plays today? What is he up to now?
Oh yeah, he actually just premiered his first musical that he'd been working on for 7 years.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it premiered at Barrington Stage, which is a really huge, big deal sort of. They get really big in the summer, really big summer theater festival, and it's called Fall Springs. Again, we talk about this in the interview, but basically it's about this town that has a huge supply of essential oil deposits underneath it. So it's a big center for fracking.
Right.
And it was inspired by disaster movies, and the main sort of young female character named Eloise is sort of a closeted scientist because her mother, I think, was a geologist who died in a cave. But the mayor wants to keep the fracking because it's earning lots of money. And the way he described it to me, again, I wasn't lucky enough to see it.
Yes.
But the soundtrack is online, and he said the first act is her being like, hey, at some point we should probably stop the fracking, and the second act, the town has collapsed and everyone's on a boat.
I love how apocalyptic he goes. He goes, he doesn't pushes it out. He doesn't hold back.
Apocalypse is also a big theme in a lot of his work, and I think that's why it's so powerful. It's because I feel like just generationally with young people, there is sort of this sense of like an apocalyptic feeling, not just during the pandemic, but this feeling like
climate change.
Yeah, with climate change, and we don't know when it's all gonna sort of go belly up. And he talked about growing up in California, especially Northern California. He's a San Francisco. And he just talked about growing up in Northern California. They get a lot of earthquakes, and so there is a feeling of like this. The apocalypse is coming.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
You do see that theme in a lot of his work.
I think it's good. That's a common thread. Most generations probably feel like the apocalypse has been coming for them at some point if you think back. So that's just life, isn't it?
Yeah.
And are you putting on a play remotely as well? Is that something that's happening?
So we're doing staged, quote unquote stage. We're doing a Zoom reading, most likely, unless there's some internet issues. But it will be a live streamed Zoom reading of his play that was written during the pandemic to be performed remotely. A bunch of scientists on spring break is what it's called. And it's going to be with students from this department, but also some PhD students from other departments.
Wow.
It's basically about a bunch of scientists who get really drunk on tequila on the beach and have a very existential conversation about their profession.
I love that. Does he know you're putting that on after speaking with him?
I mentioned it, but I will email him again, just so he knows in case he wants to tune in.
Definitely, you should. Also, if it's people, researchers here, he might find that cool.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I love that. Well, thank you so much for chatting with me, Jocelyn.
Of course. Yeah.
That was amazing, and I like how you can collide those two worlds.
Yeah, for sure.
To end with a bang and on theme with the musical topic, we're going to play the song "Suddenly Seymour" by Little Shop of Horrors.
Lift up your head, wash off your mascara. Here, take my Kleenex, wipe that lipstick away. Show me your face, clean as the morning. I know things were bad, but now they're okay. Suddenly Seymour is standing beside you. You don't need no makeup don't have to pretend. Suddenly Seymour is here to provide you sweet understanding. Seymour's your friend.
Nobody ever treated me kindly. Daddy left early, Mama was poor. I meet a man and I follow him blindly. He'd snap his fingers at me. I'd say sure. Suddenly, Seymour is standing beside me. You don't give me orders. You don't condescend. Suddenly, Seymour is here to provide me sweet understanding. Seymour's my
Tell me this feeling will last till forever. Tell me the bad times are clean washed away.
Please understand that it's still strange and frightening for losers like I've been. It's so hard to say. Suddenly, Seymour, purified you. Suddenly, Seymour, showed me I can. Another baby,
The girl that's inside you with sweet understanding.